What's up, guys? Welcome back to Titan Podcast. Today, once again, we have our very special guest, the Minister for Communications and Information, Mr. Josephine Teo.
Hello. Hi, Amanda.
Yes, welcome back.
Denise. Hi, Jen. How?
Welcome back. Previously, in the previous podcast, we talked about, you mentioned actually the online safety bill, right? That was passed in November, actually.
Yeah.
And so today we are going to talk about it. We're going to talk about how we can better manage harmful online content, because we have two of our top content creators here from Titan. We have Denise and Jian Hao. You know, you're talking about how Singapore is so safe and how online is just not as safe. It's very difficult to
Do
guarantee.
you all feel this way?
Guarantee that safety.
100%.
Yeah.
You
Anyone can
probably
say
spend
anything.
even more time
Yeah.
online.
Yeah.
Spend a lot of time.
I would say like you know how like your phone can tell you how many hours you
Screen
are.
time.
Yeah, the screen time, right? Mine is definitely
I do not even want to look at
Yeah.
it. I will feel
Uh-oh.
ashamed and guilty
Yeah.
about my screen time.
It's your reality.
We are on it all the
A
time.
reality that I often deny.
Yeah, we are connected, right?
Yes.
First thing you do when you wake up is
Pick up your phone.
Yeah.
I tell
probably
myself
the
it's
phone
for work,
will-
but it's actually I'm just scrolling TikTok.
Okay, but then again, as content creators, we
It's
do
research.
Yeah, we do a
It's
lot of
research.
scrolling
That is
for
true.
research.
That
We
is
have
true.
to.
Just trying to justify my screen time.
But also
Okay,
because we
continue.
have such high screen times, right? The exposure to possible harmful online content is
Yeah.
really up there as
Right.
well. And even not just for content creators, but just for everyday people who just go online, they scroll through social media, they are bound to come across this content. So I read that the online safety bill was to help protect users
Yeah.
as well. So could you please share a little bit more about this bill overall?
Today, in terms of how we spend our time, being connected online is a big part of it. Inevitably, you will come across content that you actually find somewhat disturbing. Many would have felt that they encounter these kinds of, content that sometimes, for example, telling people what suicide or self-harm can be, sort of inflicted. Then there is some content that is very violent. Some of the content is just very sexual, and you kind of worry, like if you have a younger brother or you have nieces and nephews, you're thinking, is it appropriate for them to be exposed to this stuff at such a young age? And of course, then there is also some behaviors like grooming, all this that you worry even more about. Those are the things that at the personal level you worry is on a continued basis. If you keep getting exposed to it, it will shape the way you see the world. But there are also other stuff that can be harmful to whole societies, not just to specific individuals. So, for example, in Singapore, we are multiracial, multicultural, and so we have to try and make a serious effort to preserve the sense of racial harmony and religious tolerance. So, if there's content that are very rude towards certain religions or certain races, that's also disturbing in our context.
Right.
And then in the context of recent COVID, what if there are stuff that is being put out that's actually not helpful to us trying to, manage the health care concerns and the healthcare risks? That's another set of concerns. And then, of course, what if terrorists use online platforms to propagate their ideas? And you heard about this idea called echo chambers, right?
Yes.
And what if they infiltrate into small groups and they start to radicalize people? These are all the things that you can come across online. So when we were looking at whether there are enough tools at the disposal, so that's why we decided that we should take a serious look at updating our laws, and that's why we moved this bill in Parliament. Yeah.
Wow.
But I suppose your question is that what exactly does this bill do, right?
Yes. So
Yeah,
now
yeah,
that the bill has been
Now
passed,
I understand why. Now
Yeah.
what is it?
Yeah. So how does it affect like platforms, or how does
How
it
is
affect
it
users?
applied?
Yeah. How is it
Yeah.
applied?
Okay, the trick, the most difficult thing about online content is just the fact that there's so much of it. You're talking about, every user being able to generate content. So Facebook, for example, I mean, at any one time, there are maybe 2 billion account holders on Facebook. I think YouTube views, YouTube Shorts, for example, I think that in a month you will maybe get 30, 40 billion of this kind of content. And every single user can generate a lot of content. Right? If you watch...
Anybody can be a content creator, basically.
It's different kinds of content.
Yes.
You know, it can be more elaborate content. You can stage a video and so on. But there are some other content like, okay, you just post 3 paragraphs. But your 3 paragraphs can be scolding somebody. Your 3 paragraphs can be, offering a viewpoint that is actually very controversial. So we have to work with them. The bill basically says that if you are a social media service that has been identified as having sufficient reach and impact, that means you have an obligation. Your obligation as a social media service is to put in place systems and processes to moderate the content and to try and reduce your users' exposure to the harmful content. This, for example, is really bad. You should filter out.
Like, what's the definition of really bad? Like, where do you draw the line? Because it's quite a grey area, right?
So there are 2 parts.
Because there's so much content that it at some point it will be hard to regulate everything.
You're right. So usually for the social media platform, they actually need to use the technology to do the filtering.
Okay.
Like algorithms.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
actually
sure
driven
they
by
already
the
have that
algorithms.
to follow their community guidelines.
Exactly.
Does our government have a different set of guidelines
Guidelines.
than what maybe TikTok or YouTube already have? Like,
So,
because it's quite elaborate, right? Like no firearms, no drugs, no
Violence.
sexual
content.
so the way to look at it is that we don't prescribe. We don't say exactly, because every platform is different, right?
Yes.
We don't say how you will,
Moderate.
go about moderating the content. But we do say that these are the kinds of content that you should be very careful about. And your system must be designed to take a closer look at these kinds of content and then moderate them. But Jianhao, you said, don't they already all have it? Sadly not.
Oh,
There are certain platforms that many Singaporeans are active on,
right.
but they don't actually
I
have
know
it.
which one.
Okay, we don't name
Okay,
names.
I know which one.
So, therefore, they have the obligation to put it in
Okay.
place.
I forgot that the internet is more than just YouTube, TikTok, and
Instagram.
Instagram.
So
got it.
the whole point of having this law is then to say, well, these platforms also, the popularity waxes and wane, right? I mean, sometimes they become much more popular. Sometimes, they lose, the attractiveness to the users. So the purpose of having this kind of law in place is that as platforms become more popular, then you want to be able to say to them that as you have become more popular, your responsibility has also increased. Then a very important thing is that the bill also requires that these social media platforms take user reports seriously. Because the content is so voluminous, just as the users can generate the content, the users are also the one that can help point out content that is undesirable, content that is potentially harmful.
I see.
If they report this content, then the social media services must also have a proper system to deal with those kinds of user reports. You can think of all these systems and process in place like a fire code. They say you occupy this building, right? Every building that in Singapore, you don't walk into the building worrying about a fire, right? Even those fires can sometimes happen, right? But the reason why you should not need to worry about there being fires is because there is a fire code, and when the people were developing this building, they have to make sure that they meet the requirements of the fire code. So what we have done in law is to say that we will also introduce codes of practice for social media services. Think of it as like a fire code. But we all know, even with a fire code, occasionally
A fire would happen.
Exactly. So when
Okay.
a fire happens, what do? You call...
Run. No.
Besides that,
Call
Besides
the
this-
fire
Hide-
department.
Hide under the table.
under the table is for earthquake.
Oh.
Yeah, and we have not had that
Right, okay.
in a significant way.
Okay.
So when you have fire, what must you do?
Call the fire department.
Exactly. What do you do if you discover these kind of online fires? So in a sense, the IMDA will have to act as a online firefighter.
Okay.
Even though you have a fire code, most of the time it's okay. Occasionally, when there's something you need to put out, somebody needs to be able to act on it.
I
That's
see.
what the law empowers IMDA to do. It's just come
Okay.
in to say that, okay, this one cannot. So because why? Very important. These social media services, they tend to be global companies. So even if they have the community standards, some things that are okay everywhere else in the world, but in Singapore, we say that it's not okay. For example, during COVID, I don't know whether you remember, there was this period where everybody got very excited and they say, oh, no more toilet paper, right?
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. The toilet paper saga.
Yes, but do you also remember there was somebody who put on social media picture of a Bible, picture of a Quran, and then they say if you run out of toilet paper,
Ah, yes.
this right now maybe elsewhere in the world they say this is freedom of speech. It's okay, but I think in Singapore we would say that hey, this is terrible. You insult two religions, in one post. And there are people who, will feel that how come in our society you can get away with saying these kind of things, right? So then these are the kind of fires that we talk about. These are the kinds where the community standards of these global platforms may not be fine-tuned to understand our society's
True.
special circumstances.
But would you be a bit more cautious that perhaps the citizens will feel that it's censorship?
You don't take out the fire hose all the time. It has to be content that, I think by and large, most Singaporeans will agree, hey, this one should not lah.
Okay, so how is that applied?
So you need
Someone
to,
has to report?
Is it like a case by case kind of scenario?
it will have to
Like
be
if
case
I
by
feel that
case.
something online, maybe I see and it offends me, like how do I make a report?
Yeah, so of course you can in the first place report to the platform.
Okay.
But in today's context,
They
there
take
are
very
eyes
long,
and
right?
ears. Well, the platforms, that's also the thing. We also want to encourage them, nudge them to take, more prompt action. But in today's context, it's not difficult for people to notice this and say that they may have made a report to the platform, the social media service, but they think that they want to alert IMDA to it also. Today is very easy, to send IMDA an email, and IMDA will pick it up, take a look at it. Then your question becomes very, very important. Is this only offensive to you, or is actually offensive to a lot of people?
I see.
So if it is a personal insult to you, not that many people insult you, right?
A fair share.
Okay, that one we have a different law. We call it POHA.
Yes.
But if it is, it is damaging to more than just one person, it damages a whole community. Okay, that's where then we'll have to make a call, make a decision whether this is serious enough for us to step in.
So do people just approach the IMD and be like, hey, I saw this post, I don't like it, take it down?
It cannot be just a matter of like or don't like.
Okay.
It has
But
to be.
yeah, I'm sure there are people in IMDA who are like ready and properly trained, right?
Yes,
to
they
take a look
handle-
at all of these.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, we have, we have our links with the different. For example, if this is religious content, obviously you should ask the religious, experts whether this kind of content is offensive
Yes.
to them,
Uh-huh.
right? So you have to talk to different people.
So different circumstances, you
Yes.
approach different people.
Correct.
Okay, so I guess I have some questions. I do have some questions for both Denise and Jian Hao, because now that we've heard a little bit more about the bill and what it does, and how do you think it will impact our users?
I think protection,
yes.
protection to mental health and online safety is important.
Yeah.
Definitely. Like if there's harmful content, it has to go.
Yes. I agree.
I think safety for children.
Yes.
'Cause I work a lot with kids, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they tell me about the things that they see online. I feel that it's very worrying because they're so young. You will feel that they're not at the age where they're able to process the information in a mature way, right? You're not sure how it actually affects them and how it makes them think about the world. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also because like users are getting younger and younger these days.
The thing about the age when you create a social media account, right, is the platforms, it's very difficult to regulate. You can always lie about your age.
That is true.
Right.
That is true.
So you it's very hard to say, oh, you can only come on the platform if you are 18 years old. You can't control it, and you have to face the fact that you just cannot control it, because kids these days, they all have a mobile phone. It's so easy to just go onto the internet and create an account
And fake your age.
exactly
Yes.
and figure your age. So actually I have a Facebook account that I haven't accessed in really long, and I think I'm like 103 years old on Facebook.
Why? Because you lied about your age.
I don't. I was legal when I created the account, but I just thought it would be funny to put my age like way older than I actually
Like
am.
103.
But so actually, Denise brought up an important point. I mean, the law is one thing. It is important, right? You need to set the ground rules so that the social media services know what is expected of them. But there are also limitations. And so even when we debated this in Parliament, the MPs also agree that public education is an equally important part of it. And one part of the public education is how can we help parents, know actually more about these safety tools that are available to them. Many of the parents themselves are not as active online as their children, and they also do not know how to talk to their children about it. So part of the public education effort is really how to share more information and knowledge, and also to equip the parents so that they feel that this is a topic that is not taboo,
Yeah.
that they can have a reasonable conversation with their children about what the expectations ought to be.
What age do you recommend I talk to my child?
How old is your child?
She is
3 years
currently
old.
3.
At what age do I start
if you ask me for my personal opinion when it comes to children, I think that most children are very how to say 醒目. As in they can
Aware.
get it, they
Yeah.
can understand things, but you cannot throw it at them suddenly. You have to
Gradually
socialize them to
build.
the idea. So for example, at 3 years old, if you start letting your daughter know that not everything online is good, if you start socializing her to the idea, when you come across things, you ask her to come and say, you see, do you think this is good? And if you start getting her the idea that, sometimes we will see things online that we really should not be spending much time. And if you start, giving her some of these examples, you are actually helping her to build up her defenses.
Okay.
It's just like, kids, you cannot keep them at home all the time.
Right. Must expose them to sickness and then let them.
Exactly right.
Yeah. It is a thing, and that
It
is
is a
just
thing.
like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, you have to, sort of like
And then build immunity.
Yes.
Exactly.
I
You
get it.
also want to build their immunity online.
Right.
But you can't wait until you think that suddenly
They're the right age
10
and you
years
just
old.
throw everything
Yeah,
at
10
them.
years, okay, from now on, this rule, that rule, everything
Right.
cannot.
So I have to constantly put out gentle reminders.
Yes, and you have to build a relationship of trust with her.
Right.
She trusts Daddy is not trying to just stop me from doing any fun thing. Daddy is trying to help me to have fun in a safe way.
Yeah.
And the more she's able to trust you, the more you are able to persuade her, maybe you don't want to do this, it's not a very smart thing to do, or like for example, if you want to advise her, if somebody reaches out to you on social media and you're not very sure, does she have that relationship of trust with you to be able to tell you about it? If she's fearful of you, she thinks that you are always going to be a party pooper,
Right.
reading cannot,
Or like will scold or what. Then
Exactly.
she'll put her defenses up.
then don't tell you lah.
Yeah.
Right.
I think
but that's very tough, right?
Yeah.
Because it requires a lot of parent care and
Yeah.
a lot
You
of gentle
love
reminders.
your daughter, right?
I do. I'm not
Of
saying it's tough for
course,
me. I'm saying that in general there are a lot of people who may lack this relationship with
This
their
may
parents. So
actually be the most effective way. Because by the time you wait until, you have to start intervening at that time, Denise works with children, right?
I've seen it before.
Relationship of trust is very important.
It is.
I mean, why should your child, having access and having more tricks up their sleeve than you can ever catch, believe you unless they trust that you have their best interest at heart, and that you actually support them exploring, and trying out different things.
Yeah.
Just that you're concerned about their safety.
Yeah.
So
I will-
that's the best thing I can suggest to you.
Yeah, I
Do,
would,
do children have a social media class?
that's a very good
Like,
question.
you should start that in your
Social
tuition
media
center.
class.
Yeah.
Social media
social
education.
media
Social
education,
media awareness.
awareness. Yeah, but I think like speaking of social media awareness, I think all these social media safety and online safety really boils down to education and educating the users as to what is good and what is considered harmful. And
And
I think
if there's no education, then this is where we use the online safety
online
bill.
safety bill. Yes, correct.
No, we both use both together.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think
if we don't have to rely on the law, that's actually even better.
Yeah.
Right, of course.
But I think all users have this responsibility to make sure
Absolutely.
that whatever they put out online is safe, and then all the more so for influencers with very high following to make sure that there is a safe space.
I mean, influencers, yes, but the people online, there are not nice people on.
there are
Yeah.
people who are not
Yeah,
nice.
actually encouraging people to be more civil towards each other. I mean, you don't agree with everything, but there is a,
But it's like something that's
Civil
like
way to
impossible
disagree,
to crack the code, right? When like people get to be anonymous on a platform, like
Yes.
the comments just run wild. The stuff that they post are also not the nicest stuff.
Yeah.
That's true.
And it's something we have to accept.
But I
That's
think
true.
on like how we can help this entire situation is like personally as users we can always just try to be a little bit more encouraging for like safety. Like even like in Titan I was saying about positive online space, right? We even have like Ladies First that helps community building, that supports women and really like helps to build a community for them to feel safe, where they can share like personal thoughts and be protected as well. So I think as influencers we do have like a sense of responsibility to this entire
We do.
online safety
We have to
situation.
set a good example.
Exactly. And
please continue to do so.
we will do our very
We
best.
do our best.
Yeah, but then again, it is really up to everybody to sort of work together at this to make sure online is safe.
So the laws have to be in place. The social media services have to do their part. And I think when we did the consultation, a lot of the groups that we interacted with said exactly the same thing as you, which is that they hope that the response to user reporting can be improved.
Yeah.
And they also want the social media services to be more mindful of local norms. Because their point is that every society is different.
Yeah.
And what is acceptable elsewhere may not be acceptable to us.
And most of the platforms are global as well.
Exactly. So you may be a global product, but surely you need to be able to respond to our local situation, our values, right? And the third equally important part is public education.
Yes.
Making people feel confident that they can actually, for example, go into the settings and modify, how much time or what kinds of content they can be.
And there's like parental safety as well.
Very much
Yeah.
so. Very much so. Yeah.
And I think even on some platforms you can moderate the types of interactions that you want with people. Yeah.
Take action.
So ultimately, all these protection all comes down to awareness and education. There are many, like based on this conversation that we've had, there are many layers of filters in which various platforms or like even MCI has put in place to protect its users, and it's a matter of educating yourself and being aware of this. And there are people who you can reach out to in order to find this kind of protection or
Yes.
like report to as well.
I suppose
right?
we're not there yet, but it would be a real, a wonderful thing if every social media user in Singapore is so familiar with the presence of these tools and are actively using these tools to protect themselves. Right?
What is one piece of advice you can give to all users to make online a safer space for everybody?
Well, do not feel shy. If this person or this content is making you uncomfortable, move on. That's the best protection. Reject this kind of content.
I see.
Don't allow yourself to go deeper and deeper into this hole and cannot extricate yourself.
Okay. I think for Tianhao and Denise, what is one advice or one thing that you want to say to users to sort of support this healthy online community? Maybe we start with Denise.
Okay, I'll go first. For my students, I always tell them, try to limit your time on some of these platforms. I am very worried about them because sometimes they do come to me with stories of cyberbullying, for example, and I think like a couple of years ago, I did feel that I was in a position where I am worrying, but I didn't feel that I had the tools to kind of come out and help them and support them in that sense. So all we can do at that point in time is block. Let's move on, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I would say don't talk to strangers. I think that's very important, especially if you're a bit younger. Don't talk to strangers because that can be potentially very dangerous.
Is
Yes.
Jianhao a stranger?
Sorry?
Jianhao is not a stranger, huh?
Usually there's a verified. So if you speak to one of us, you'll know it's us. Because of course, then comes the problem of fake news, scam, and there's just a lot of things that.
There are
can
so many
happen,
fake
right?
accounts
Yeah,
nowadays as
recently
well.
there was that
Recently
scam.
there was one.
That's so weird.
Yeah,
right?
so strange.
Yeah. So scams and
Yeah.
stuff.
The Prime Minister got people pretend to be him.
Wow.
Sunday Prime Minister.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I
So-
think nowadays anybody will pretend to be anybody at this point of
what,
time.
what I would say is don't believe everything and try to apply some common sense. Like for example, would Prime Minister really message you and tell you to go somewhere or buy something?
Yeah.
The answer is a clear, obvious no. So try to think about this and don't believe everything, especially headlines.
Yes.
Headlines can be so misleading.
Yes.
Like if you're going to read an article, don't just read the headline and then walk away. Read the whole article first because most of the time it's the headline that is clickbaity and they are just trying to get views. But other than that, read the whole article first and verify the source.
Yeah, do you have any last thoughts on this bill, Minister, before we close out this podcast?
Well, I think it's going to take all of our efforts, to jointly make the online, space safer for, for children, for anyone. It's a great medium, to stay connected with one another and to know what's happening in the world. But it has also been taken advantage of, and so we have to put on, our protective gear. And make sure that whilst we enjoy the benefits, we also don't allow ourselves to become hurt.
Very, very wise word. Yes. Okay. And with that, thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you have any comments on, managing harmful content, let us know in the comment section down below. If you just want to leave a nice comment to share with everybody during this holidays, do let us know in the comment section down below as well. And once again, thank you, Minister Teo, for
Thank you
joining
very
us.
much. Thank
and
you.
Thank you, Denise and Tianhao. And we will see you guys next time.
Have a great
Bye.
2023.
Yes, Happy New Year!